He was once the most feared leader of the Comanchero's club, but in May 2022, he came face to face with death. The club he once gave everything for had come for his blood.
Good evening. A high-ranking Comanchero and his brother have been ambushed at an Auburn gym, hit in a hail of bullets, innocent people cowering where they could. Tarek Zahed is in a serious condition in hospital.
But fate would decide otherwise. After taking 20 gunshots, he still survived, rising up like a phoenix from the ashes.
Comanchero bikie leader Tarek Zahed is fighting for his life while his brother is dead.
Tarek had a lot of enemies who targeted him and knew to always watch his back every time. He decided to visit a non-Comanchero hangout, a decision that made him easy prey for his enemies.
And that caption on that photo from Alan Meehan was hard to kill.
Yeah, it's the name of a movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's incredibly appropriate.
Even though he survived the incident, the former National Sergeant-at-Arms of the Comanchero suffered lifelong physical and mental scars, including the loss of his right eye. In the coming months, the Comanchero boss would be out for blood and revenge. Who is Tarek Zahed, and how did he manage to survive 10 bullets?
One minute, he was a poster boy for the Comancheros on Instagram. Tonight, the bikie gang's sergeant-at-arms is in jail, charged with murder.
Tarek Zahed is a man who has never been on the right side of the law, not even once.
Bikie boss Tarek Zahed remains behind bars tonight after his bid for bail was knocked back. The Comanchero kingpin is accused of the 2014 gangland murder of Yusuf Assoum. More dramatic vision has emerged of the chaos and confusion as police opened fire on one of Sydney's busiest roads to capture Australia's most feared bikie boss.
Murder charges have been sensationally dropped against Comanchero bikie Tarek Zahed and his brother over an underworld execution in 2014. But the infamous crime figures are not off the hook, confessing to roles in covering up the killing. A decade on, those responsible are yet to be caught.
Zahed, who was once nicknamed the Balenciaga Vikings, was no fan of the media either.
9 News was at court last week when Zahed was arrested by detectives.
Australia has produced some of the most dangerous bikers in the world, and in 1980, Tarek joined the same league. He was a son of Lebanese immigrants who had fled as a result of the Civil War, and even at a young age he showed signs of being a gangster, a premonition of his coming days. But he wasn't alone. He had 2 other brothers, Omar and Abdul, one of whom would suffer a deadly fate in the hands of Tarek. Growing up under such circumstances would definitely have an effect on the children. Tarek and his brothers would usually engage in fistfights among themselves. Soon, they moved to getting into fistfights with other children in the neighborhood. It is believed that the status of Tarek's parents played a crucial role in how he turned out. As a son of an immigrant, he had this burning rage in him. At the tender age of 15, Tarek introduced himself to Sydney's law enforcement. He was slammed with his first criminal charge after he assaulted an individual in 1995. Eventually, he resisted arrest and got another charge added to his assault charges. At age 15, Tarek was already convicted of assault and resisting police. In 2001, 6 years after his first encounter with law enforcement, Tarek made another move which earned him months behind bars. During a road rage, Tarek ordered his dog to attack a woman after the two had engaged in a heated argument. Tarek was sentenced to 8 months of periodic detention for his actions during the road rage. One would think these trips to the jail would teach him a lesson that jail was not a good place and encourage him to live a better life. But instead, they made him more ruthless. He seemed to have enjoyed the world of violence and soon added drugs to his portfolio. If there's one thing we all know, it's the fact that the drug culture leads to one thing: more violence, especially for individuals like Tarek, who had a long-time rage burning inside of them. Tarek's involvement in drugs earned him his first stretch in prison. A lot of drug deals go wrong, and a ruthless man like Tarek was only a few deals away from causing violence. That deal happened in 2004. Tarek Zahed was sentenced to 5 years behind bars after he kicked a man's head, fracturing his skull over a drug deal gone wrong. An incident like this would no doubt attract the attention of the underworld, which would consider a man as such as a great asset. His rage, courage, and ruthlessness could be put to better use. According to reports, Tarek began to hang out with members of the Comanchero's motorcycle club in 2009, just after he came out from jail. In 2011, Tarek was once again linked to a large-scale street brawl where his associate was shot with a nail gun. While driving away from the scene, Tarek fired 4 bullets as the car exited the area. The bullets hit a man in his ear and in his shoulder. Tarek was identified, arrested, and sentenced to 8 years behind bars. He was not eligible for parole until he had served at least 5 years of his sentence. Even while in prison serving his sentence, Tarek decided to double down on his illegal activities. But this time, it was something bigger than him, not a random road rage or drug deals that went wrong. This decision would in the future contribute to the death of Tarek's brother, Omar. It was at this point that the brothers decided to join the Comanchero's motorcycle club. The club was one of the most feared MCs in Australia at the time, and Tarek was a perfect fit. He was ruthless and violent, and had rage burning inside of him since childhood. Joining a club, feared by both the police and rival gangs, would give him a platform to unleash his burning rage. As expected, Tarek soon hit it off once he was patched in. While many newbies would take their time to test the ground, Tarek had a reputation that preceded him. So he went into character instantly and started working his way to the top. In no time, Tarek rose to the top and soon secured an influential position in the club. In 2020, he was named the club's sergeant at arms, an enforcer who is tasked with instilling discipline among lower members of the club. Now, he had a lot of gang members at his becks and calls. Being a sergeant at arms for the Comancheros, one of the richest MCs in Australia, also meant that he had a fat account balance. Tarek spent most of this wealth living a lavish lifestyle, buying every piece of designer clothing he could find in his market. This earned him the nickname Balenciaga Biker. Tarek became more respected and feared. However, he had one major weakness: he couldn't live a quiet life. Tarek lived a lavish lifestyle and would always boast of his luxury clothes and watches worth tens of thousands of dollars. While this was not a bad thing, the Comanchero's boss had no known job, which raised questions about his source of wealth. It was only a matter of time before the police showed up at his doorstep, accusing him of living off the proceeds of crime. The authorities discovered multiple accounts in the names of his kids, which were obviously full of money, whose sources could be questioned. The illegal money reportedly totaled $900,000. Upon further investigation, security forces raided Tarek's home, where they found high-value goods that they believe he bought using crime proceeds. There were also reports that Tarek once claimed to be a broke delivery driver, earning $450 per week. However, it is believed that Tarek sold this lie, so he would avoid paying back the money he owed as compensation by the court to the victim he shot years back. If you are familiar with gangs, they hate paying back debts, especially when the other person is a regular citizen. Usually they find it easier to kill the person instead of repaying the debts. Tarek Zahed pleaded guilty to making false statements to the government and dealing with the proceeds of crime. As a result, he was sentenced to 1 year and 4 months behind bars. However, Tarek never served a day out of the sentence. As soon as the judge handed out the sentence, Tarek's lawyer put in an appeal and was released on bail. After this close call with jail, Tarek decided it was time to lay low a bit. However, a violent person like Tarek cannot stay under the radar for a long time. Staying out of trouble was not part of his lifestyle, and he soon got involved in an altercation that would end up in the Comanchero sergeant in arms being cuffed.
9 News has obtained footage which provides a rare insight into Sydney's underworld. The CCTV vision shows an encounter allegedly escalate when a Comanchero bikie boss goes to lunch at Crown's new casino at Barangaroo.
In January 2021, Tarek Zahed made the news again after a CCTV camera captured him assaulting a man in a high-end restaurant. The high-ranking Sydney biker was out on parole at the time, but the incident that happened that day once again put him in the police spotlight. Tarek Zahed was at a birthday dinner at a restaurant called Omar in the Barangaroo casino. Everything was fine until about 8:25 p.m. when Tarek motioned to Mr. Awoli, a man seated at a separate table in a private room, to follow him to the bathroom. CCTV footage shows Zahed having a heated argument with a guy named Mohammed Aouli in the bathroom of the venue. Things quickly escalated. Tarek struck Aouli in the head twice and then pushed him out of the bathroom. But that's not all. Another man stepped in, ushered Aouli back into the bathroom, and closed the door. Following the incident, the authorities issued a warrant for Tarek's arrest. Some weeks later, Tarek was arrested in Melbourne and was extradited to Sydney for allegedly bashing a man in the toilets of Crown Casino restaurant. The Comanchero boss refused to answer questions from reporters asking what he had been doing in Melbourne as he marched past shocked travelers at Sydney Airport.
Were you avoiding police?
Initially, Tarek was facing a serious charge of affray. However, that charge got downgraded to a less serious one, using violence to cause fear. He ended up pleading guilty to this charge. On February 10th, local court chief magistrate Graham Hansen handed down the verdict. Tarek was convicted and hit with a $1,000 fine. After this incident, Tarek Zahed left Australia for Turkey. The court spoiled his plan after they issued a notice to both the Turkish authorities and the Lebanese authorities that he was a dangerous man and could cause a lot of trouble if granted entry into their countries. The Turkish authorities immediately swung into action and denied him entry into their country, forcing him to go to Lebanon. The Lebanese authorities had reasons to accept him since he was a native. They arrested him and put him under close watch. He returned to Australia some months later, but his accounts, messages, and calls were being monitored. To put an end to this, Tarek moved to Melbourne to lay low, but he ruined it after interrupting a tennis match at the Australian Open. This gave away his location, and he was arrested shortly after. While visiting Sydney, Tarek received information that a rival gang had put $1 million bounty on his head, making him a hotcake for all gangs and criminals looking to earn quick cash. The Comanchero boss was warned several times to change his gym and routine, but he never listened, a decision that would cost him a lot.
Good evening. A high-ranking Comanchero and his brother have been ambushed at an Auburn gym. Hit in a hail of bullets, innocent people cowering where they could. Tarek Zahed is in a serious condition in hospital. His brother Omar killed at the scene. And tonight, the revelation from police, both men had been warned.
On 10th May 2022, Tarek was at the Bodyfit gym in Auburn, Sydney, with his brother Omar, when sounds of bullets filled the air. At least 20 shots were fired at the two brothers. Tarek was hit 10 times, with one of the bullets going through his eyes. He was rushed to Westmead Hospital, where he was operated on and placed in an induced coma. On the other hand, his brother Omar sustained multiple gunshot wounds to the stomach, arms, and legs. He was treated, but soon succumbed to his injuries at the scene.
Comanchero bikie leader Tarek Zahed is fighting for his life while his brother is dead.
Even though some arrests were made in relation to the incident, the rival gang members who murdered Omar were never identified nor brought to justice. Tarek miraculously survived the incident, although he still had scars and permanent injuries from the brutal attack. For example, he completely lost vision in one side of his eyes. However, that was small to what was coming ahead for Tarek and his remaining brother, Abdul. Tarek couldn't mourn the loss of Omar when he, alongside his Abdul, was hit with a major blow. Just 3 months after the brutal attack, Tarek and Abdul were being charged with a murder that happened back in 2014. This time, the authorities had found enough evidence to make a case.
Who survived an assassination attempt early this year. Tarek Zahed has been charged over a 2014 murder.
To get the full picture of the events leading up to the arrest, we need to go back to 2014. It all started when a man named Youssef Assoum was found lifeless in his car. When police arrived at the scene, they quickly suspected it was the work of a bike gang. Their suspicions were confirmed after conducting DNA analysis. Tarek's blood was found on the car, and a rogue bullet was discovered on the ground. This put Zahed on the police radar. Over the next 8 years, they compiled all the evidence needed to arrest him. Fast forward to August 2022, and they finally made their move. However, Tarek did not come quietly. The police were forced to shoot beanbag rounds through his car to get him to comply. They also learned that he had an associate in the vehicle who might be armed, so they took precautions.
Rounds into the vehicle and dragged out the high-ranking crime figure, as they feared he and an associate inside might be armed. Mr. Zahed was pulled from the black BMW.
So a trial date was set for February 5th, 2024. Both Tarek and his brother were facing first-degree murder charges. But just before the trial, The brothers made a deal with the state to try to reduce their prison sentences.
Murder charges have been sensationally dropped against Comanchero bikie Tarek Zahed and his brother over an underworld execution in 2014. But the infamous crime figures are not off the hook, confessing to roles in covering up the killing. A decade on, those responsible are yet to be caught.
Tarek admitted that he had burned Assoum's car to stop the police from collecting evidence, and his brother pleaded guilty to being an accessory to murder. They also revealed that neither of them actually killed Assoum, but they couldn't disclose the real murderers' names due to their loyalty to the bike gang code. This plea deal really paid off for them. Instead of being tried for murder, Tarek was found guilty of hindering a homicide investigation and got a sentence of just 3 years and 6 months. That's a lot less than what he would have faced for a murder charge. He remains behind bars, but for a much shorter time. The story of Tarek Zahed highlights how quickly things can get real in the biker world. A few months ago, Tarek Zahed was a powerful Comanchero's boss, but in just a few months, he lost his brother and almost lost his freedom for a case that happened 8 years ago.